And this morning, we're wrapping up our series, Oh Baby, answering all your maternity and parenting questions. This morning, one of the toughest, what should you name your child? It's no easy task, but you might start with what names not to choose. Pamela Satran is the co-author of Beyond Jennifer and Jason, Madison and Montana, What to Name Your Baby Now. Hi, nice to see you, Pamela.
Oh, great to be here.
You know, you say what to name your baby now. It's so interesting, isn't it, how names become popular, and you can almost pinpoint when somebody was born. For example, you never hear of Betty's or Dorothy's or Dots anymore, do you? And I think those are names from my mom's generation.
Definitely. Shirley, you know, every Shirley was born in 1937.
Really? I know,
Yes.
it seems that way.
Yeah.
So what are the popular trends today when it comes to names?
Yeah, I think in the future they're going to say every Nevaeh was born in 2005, and that's heaven spelled backwards, and that's...
Really? I've never even heard of that. Are a lot of
it's,
people naming their child that?
Well, there's a big trend towards spiritual names. There's I think people in general are looking for names that have personal meanings, so spiritual names like Justice, Peace, Nevaeh, Trinity, those are big. Simple names, down-to-earth names, Emma, Charlie.
Sam.
Yes, Sam, Max. People like that straightforward, honest kind of thing.
Right, and I know that, as you mentioned, what are vowel names?
Well, there are a lot of names all of a sudden that are really popular that start with vowels, like Aiden, Ethan, Oliver, Olivia, Abigail, Ava. It just seems like
Is that just sort
Isabel.
of coincidental?
You know, at first I thought it was, but it just seems that the most popular, most stylish names all start with vowels.
What about, you mentioned Madison and Montana in the title of your book. Are those still very popular? I know that for a while,
well, Madison is.
People were naming girls sort of last names as first names, even if they're not family names. And that's still a popular thing?
Yes, people are still doing that, and but people are also doing something else that I think is a better thing to do, which is looking for a real family name in their family tree, even if it doesn't sound like the classic Waspy, Carrington, you know,
Taylor,
Madison, right?
Yeah.
But naming them DiMatteo or Redmond or McCormick, which I think is very cool when it has that real relationship to your family.
Yeah, I agree, because if you're going to name a child a name like that, have it mean something instead of just, you know, going to a Jackson Pollock exhibit or something like that, right? I mean, although that's a nice name too.
Yeah, if you love Jackson Pollock.
Yeah, my daughter's middle name is Tully, and that's my husband's mother's maiden name, so it's Eleanor Tully, and now she just wants to be called Tully, but that's not going to happen. Okay, let's talk about the fastest growing girl names. You said heaven spelled backwards, and that's Nevaeh?
Yes.
Ella or Isabella or Stella.
Ella names. Anything Ella, Bella, Stella, Isabella, that seems to be a big thing.
Swella fella. Okay. Chloe is popular.
Yes.
Paris. You know.
Paris Hilton. Yeah, and not only Paris Hilton, but
who would want to do that to their child? No
many.
offense, Paris Hilton, but would you want your daughter to grow up like Paris Hilton? Frankly, I wouldn't. Okay, Lola and Scarlett, cute. And then fastest growing boys' names are Aiden, Braden, Jaden, Caden,
Braden,
Eli, Elijah, Isaac or Isaiah, Ethan, and Owen. There are a lot of those vowel names.
My young son is named Owen, so.
Yeah, so you like that. Now, what about these celebrity names? That guy was funny. He said, are you naming your child or opening up a coffee shop? Gwyneth Paltrow named her daughter Apple, and apparently Chris Martin's manager has a daughter named Apple, too, and that's where they got that. Courtney Cox, we have graphics of these guys, I think. Courtney Cox named her little girl Coco. And Claudia Schiffer named her daughter, I'm assuming, Clementine.
Right, right.
Which is a cute name,
Very
although it makes me
cute.
think of those little oranges.
And in England they say Clementine, which I think is cute too.
Okay, so do you think that a child who's given one of these names is sort of saddled with some difficulties as they grow up?
Well,
or?
You have to start saying, all right, this child has a movie star for a parent, which is kind of difficult. And we're growing up in Hollywood where anything goes. And so I think naming a child Apple, if you live in New Jersey, where I live, is a lot different than naming them Apple in Beverly Hills.
Yeah. Apple Martin always sounds like Apple Martini a little bit. Okay, so now you're talking about naming your baby. You say avoid unusual spellings. This is the helpful hint, because life is hard enough for kids if they have to spell their names every time they say it. That's tough. You also say call out the name at the playground, which is sort of similar to that guy's suggestion at the bar. consult fresh sources, right?
Right. I think if you're really stuck, you know, you might have to start all over again. Buy a new book, look in the phone book, look at a map.
And let your baby inspire the name. In other words,
Right.
name something that seems to fit.
Right, exactly. Wait to see the baby, and you really have a deadline, and you have to pick.
All right. Well, Pamela Redmond Satran, thanks so much for coming by
Thank
this morning.
you.
Nice to see you. And up next, Forever Young, how millions of Americans can cure their fading eyesight. That's right after this.